Right, it's day 7 of the lockdown. We're officially a week in, and today I'm comparing the new MacBook Air with the MacBook Pro. So the MacBook Air has just been released and it looks like a very nice and especially powerful machine. It's the new 2020 update of the MacBook Air and it comes at a reasonable price starting from $999, which the previous models were starting at $1,099. So it's actually a good price for this PC. 3 colors: the gold, the silver and the space gray, of course. Now the basic model has the dual core i3 processor, which is pretty basic for a PC but good enough for students, for example. Now that's the new MacBook Air 2020. The new MacBook Pro is due to be released very soon. This is a MacBook Pro 2016, so 4 years old but fully spec'd out. It's a 15-inch with a quad-core Intel i7 processor. It has 16 GB of RAM LPDDR3 and it has the Radeon Pro 464 GB Intel HD Graphics 530 graphics card. As for storage, this one has 500 GB of flash storage, and for me it's mainly used for Photoshop and Premiere Pro. That's why it's so spec'd out. At that time it was fully spec'd out. Right now we're probably going to say like that's not spec'd out, but 4 years ago this was a PC of $2,500, which is a lot of money. So here you can see some information on the hardware that's used in this computer. But now the big question: which one should you buy, a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air right now, as of the 25th of March 2020. So the MacBook Pro is advertised as the best of the brightest and is just a very nice computer if you ask me. So the biggest difference you'll see off the bat is of course the touch bar on the top of the keyboard on the MacBook Pro, which you won't have on a MacBook Air. Is the touch bar something you will really need? No, it's not. I've been using this PC for 4 years now, and the only reason why I use the touch bar is to lower or higher my volume or my brightness, or maybe the Touch ID, which is also featured in the MacBook Air, so that's not really a plus point on the MacBook Pro. To be fair, I don't really use it, but that doesn't mean that you won't or shouldn't use it. I just don't see a reason why this might be interesting to select colors in Photoshop, to select something in Premiere Pro, for example. I just use my mouse for that. Maybe that's because I'm old school in those situations, I don't know. But the touch bar for me, not the reason why I would buy a MacBook Pro. Now the other big difference between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro is on the inside. It's the power of the device, which sounds logical and is logical. So if we're just looking at size wise, we will compare both of the 13.3 inch laptops with each other. So the 13.3 inch MacBook Air and the 13.3 inch MacBook Pro, both latest version MacBook Air 2020 and MacBook Pro somewhere from early 2019. So the basic model of the MacBook Air 2020 version starts with an i3 Intel Core processor, while the 13-inch Mac Pro basic model starts with an i5 processor. You can go up to i7 on both of these devices, but we are really looking at the basic model right here. Both also start with 8 GB of internal memory. So both have the Intel Iris Plus graphics card, so no big differences there. One interesting thing though I see here is that the MacBook Air has a battery life of up to 11 hours, while the MacBook Pro does with 1 hour less, which means 10 hours of daily usage without charging this thing up. That also shows what the MacBook Air really is for. The MacBook Air is mainly a computer for browsing, for typing, doing some light work, while the Mac Pro, the name says it all, for people who work with Photoshop all the time, who work with Premiere Pro all the time. That's why you need a MacBook Pro in this case. As for storage goes though, the basic model of the MacBook Air, the new one 2020 model, has 256 GB SSD storage from the get-go, while the Mac Pro only has 128 GB of SSD from the starting model. So that's also a difference. But if you're really a Photoshopper or a Premiere Pro or video editing and other stuff editor, then you'll probably use an external hard drive, and you'll need this as well. USB-C, you'll need this. Display wise, these are very similar, only the MacBook Pro has a bit more brightness with 500 nits compared to 400 nits and a different color scheme with the P3 white color compared to the full standard sRGB color, but you won't really notice the biggest differences because they both have a Retina display with True Tone technology, which is great, to be honest. Another big difference is the weight and the size. The Mac Pro is a bit thicker and heavier than the Mac Air, but that's because it's a MacBook Air and it features less components that are heavy. Camera, no one really cares about that probably. So the new MacBook Air 2020 model has a bit of a change on the speakers. It has the stereo speakers with support for Dolby Atmos playback, which sounds great if you ask me. These speakers don't have the Dolby Atmos playback sound. But the biggest change for me is for people who are really into podcasts. If you checked out the review of MKB HD on the new MacBook Air 2020 model, then you'll notice that he says that you can just record your podcast with the internal microphone of your MacBook Air, which sounds mind-blowing to me. A microphone which you can't even see. Like over here I have the Yeti X, big clunky microphone. Over here, very nice, very good sound, fluid, thick sound. And then you can just record your podcast with inbuilt microphones on a MacBook Air. That just sounds crazy, but it's real and it sounds really good. You have the 3 mic array with directional beamforming. No idea what they mean with that, but probably it just means that these are great. So that's the big difference with the regular 3 microphones in the MacBook Pro base model. Another big viewable difference keyboard wise are the inverted T arrow keys on the MacBook Air 2020 compared to the regular arrow keys that are not an inverted T like this on the MacBook Pro. Right, so we went over all the specification on both basic models of the MacBook Air 2020 and the MacBook Pro 2019. So what do you need? Well, there are different solutions to this question. First one, if you're on a budget, buy the 2020 MacBook Air by far. Because there are 2 reasons why you're on a budget. One, maybe you're a student, then you probably won't need a MacBook Pro. And 2, if you really need a device for video editing, then you won't be on a budget. That are my main 2 reasons why you're probably on a budget. I don't know, let me know why you're on a budget, but MacBook Air by far, very cheap price is not the thing I wanted to say, so let's just, no. Very correct price, the $999 price tag for a very good basic PC. Yeah, you'll have an i3, but you'll have more storage compared to the MacBook Pro, and the i3 compared to the i5 is a step up, but not the step up which would cost you $300. If you're not looking at the price, which MacBook should you buy right now? So right now we only have the 2020 MacBook Air and the 2019 MacBook Pro, so no 2020 MacBook Pro right now. So what should you buy if you are buying something right now? You're ordering online and you want to buy something online. Let me tell you what you have to buy. First thing you'll need to decide for yourself, are you going to use this piece of hardware and software built in? Of course, for video, photo editing or other hard stuff that needs a lot of processing power or not? Or are you going to use it for browsing, watching Netflix while you're in quarantine during the Corona crisis, for example? Then you'll have your answer to that question right now. If you're watching Netflix, if you're browsing, if you're not into video editing, if you're not into photoshopping, if you're just watching YouTube videos like this one, buy a MacBook Air 2020. You won't be disappointed. Very good PC, and maybe one day you'll be like, oh, I want to start a podcast, and you'll have everything you need just right there on the MacBook Air. But if you will ever go onto photoshopping, onto Premiere Pro, then you're better off buying a MacBook Pro. But with this little thing you have to think about. Apple will probably release a new MacBook Pro later this year. Like it should have already been released almost, I think, or it will be released in the coming weeks, I hope. And that's maybe the reason why I would advise you to wait if you're now thinking of buying a MacBook Pro. Like, wait a couple of weeks and there will probably be a new MacBook Pro 2020 if you're not on a budget, because it will be not a cheap PC at that time, but hey, it will be the newest one you can get at that time. So yeah, the question sounds easy, which one should you get, but the answer is way more difficult and dependent on what you need it for. So again, if you're a fanatic user of Premiere Pro, Photoshop, other hard stuff for work, for example, buy MacBook Pro, you won't be disappointed. Very good machine. If you're not a fanatic user, you're just browsing, you're a student, for example, who needs it to type on Microsoft Office, Word and all those other stuff, and making some PowerPoints and all that things I never have to do anymore, luckily, then you should buy a MacBook Air. I actually bought a MacBook Air 2019 for my cousin so he could use it in college, because it is just overall a very nice laptop to have. It looks sleek. You can't say anything bad about the design of Apple. I think, in my opinion, of course, my honest opinion, I really like the design of these laptops, and they just work very well as well. Never had any issues so far with the Mac Pro, touch wood. But hey, MacBook Air, very nice PC as well, and if I would have any money left to spend, I would buy it just to have it and just to look at it, but I don't have that budget to do something like that, so yeah. So overall, let me know, what would you choose, the MacBook Air 2020 or the MacBook Pro 2019, both basic models, and for what? And if you have any questions, please do let them know. If you didn't like this video, let me know why. If you liked it, let me know why. And if you liked it, subscribe below. Those are a lot of words, I know, but we'll get there one day. Right, this was day 7. Stay safe, wash your hands and stay home, and I'll see you in my next one.